top 3 pre-flop tips for beginning poker players. I realize that a lot of you are not total novices, but you're kind of new to the game. I actually just recorded my 500th episode of Weekly Poker Hand. I've been at this for a long time, and all of you here today with me have found me at some point in your poker journey, and a lot of you are newer to the game today. If you watch this in the future, this information is going to be still 100% accurate and applicable to exactly beginning poker players. So today we're going to be discussing my top 3 tips to help you crush the game. All right, if you want to crush small stakes games like 1-2 no limit, or $100 buy-in tournaments live, or $5 buy-in tournaments online, you simply must play fundamentally sound pre-flop strategies. Fortunately for you, your opponents are going to be blundering all over the place. They are going to raise with the wrong hands. They're going to call with the wrong hands. They're going to 3-bet the wrong hands. They're going to fold the wrong hands. Literally, they're going to be screwing up left and right. And if you just play good, strong, fundamentally sound poker, you are going to crush them, which is great for you. That said, if you do not have a solid game plan for pre-flop play, you are inevitably going to leave a ton of money on the table. And I do not want that for you. So, in this webinar, you're going to learn solid pre-flop fundamentals. Also, my number 1 tip for pre-flop play in live cash games, and huge pre-flop mistakes that you have to avoid that your opponents are going to be failing to avoid on a very, very regular basis. Someone says, should you limp with aces from early position? No, that is not part of a good, strong, fundamentally sound strategy. It's also worth noting, if you play mostly small stakes poker, or only small stakes poker, you may think that you should make the same plays that your opponents make. Us humans, for some reason, think that we need to model our strategy after the people who are around us. If everyone in your game is limping before the flop with all sorts of nonsense, you may think that's a good play. How bad could it be? Everyone else is doing it. Maybe everyone in your game raises to 15 big blinds before the flop. You may think, how bad could it be? Everyone else is doing it. And to be fair, if you all are making the same errors, no one's really going to win. You're just all going to sit there and pay the rake. But you should instead model your strategy after either good, strong, game theory optimal solvers or the absolute best poker players in the world. Now, I understand that it's sometimes difficult to get content where you have the absolute best poker players in the world playing against players who are making egregious blunders on a regular basis. But fortunately for you, solvers are useful, and I have plenty of experience playing tiny stakes games because I regularly play these games so that I can make content for you. I'm not some high stakes player who is just saying what I think works. I've played substantial hours at 1-2 no limit live, $100 buy-in tournaments live, tiny stakes online, purposefully to get this information for all of you. You're not sure I'm entirely human. Definitely human. Happy to be here with all of you. Tip number 1, stop limping and play aggressively. Not stop limping and stop playing aggressively. Stop limping, that's one thing, and play aggressively. You crush 1-2 by playing tight, aggressive pre-flop strategies. You simply must stop splashing around and limping in and hoping to flop a good hand. This is what everyone else in your games is going to be doing for the most part, and they are all going to be losing a ton of money to the rake. And they're all essentially just trying to flop a good hand. A lot of people think small stakes games are bingo. Oh, I don't want to play bingo poker because I just have to get lucky then. But you have to realize that if you can raise and make your opponents fold out a lot of their trash, and you don't pay a ton of rake because you're not actually involved in all that many hands, it's not really bingo anymore. Instead, you're just extracting value from your opponents on a regular basis. And you may think that if it goes limp, 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 and I raise, they're all going to call me. Well, you're probably using the wrong raise size. Say you are playing 1-2 no limit, and 5 people limp, and you make it $10, yeah, they're all going to call. Who'd have thought? But if instead you make it $28, Maybe they're all going to fold and you're just going to get a free pot. Getting a free pot is very valuable. I actually discussed this in one of my books that I wrote a long time ago after playing a whole bunch of hours at 1-2 no limit called, what was that book called? Here it is. Well, this is the tournament one. There's another one for cash games. Strategies for beating small stakes poker cash games. I grabbed the wrong one off the shelf. But I talk about this. You need to be raising bigger against these players who are inevitably going to call you with all sorts of junk if you raise somewhat small. I actually wrote about it in my new book as well. 100 Essential Tips to Master No Limit Hold'em. Check out this book if you have not already. It just came out. I've worked very hard on it. If everyone who watches this video picks up one of these for the holiday season, for yourself and someone else, we'll probably make the top of the New York Times best-selling list for fun. Probably not going to happen, but, you know. People can dream. That said, I just wanted to get in the hands of people who will make good use of it, which will hopefully be all of you. You 10 times raise the limpers every time you have a worthy hand. Realize that might not even be big enough. If there are 8 limpers, a pot size raise is more than 10 big blinds, right? At least it's close to 10 big blinds. So don't be afraid to use big raise sizes. Realize that you need to build pots with your best hands so that you can, first off, just extract pre-flop value, and also so that you set yourself up to steal pots that do not belong to you. We'll go through a few examples of that later. So, let's take a look at a few very basic raise first in ranges. Here we are in a cash game with a rake. So, cash games like a lot of you are going to be playing in your casino. Here is the low jack raise first in range. This would be if you were first to act with only 6 players at the table. Notice, if they fold to you, you should only be raising with something like pocket 6s and better, ace X suited and better, right? It's good king X suited, suited Broadway hands, the best offsuit Broadway hands, and that's about it. Now, you may want to play a little bit wider than this. Perhaps you can raise all pairs, maybe you can raise a few more suited connectors, but you certainly can't go nuts raising ace 7 offsuit and queen 9 offsuit and 9 8 offsuit. All these hands are awful and they should just fold. Okay? This rake structure that we are using is standard rake structure for online 6-handed cash games. All the major poker sites have the same rake structure. All right. From the button, how wide can you raise? Well, about 40%. Maybe a little bit wider, again, if your opponents are going to be on the weaker side and they're not going to 3-bet you often enough. But you can play about 40% of hands. Again, notice 8-7 offsuit, 6-5 offsuit, 7-4 suited, Jack 3 suited, even ace 2 offsuit. These hands are not quite good enough to play. And if you're consistently playing hands that are not quite good enough to play, then you're going to be leaking money to your opponents. How do you think grasp that fast all the information you gather? How do you gather information quickly? You pay attention. Do you memorize spots so that you already know what to do? Absolutely. When they fold to me on the button, I know which hands I'm going to play. We have a PokerCoaching app that can actually quiz you for whatever stack depth you want, whatever position you want, whatever game structure, tournaments, cash games, whatever that you want, so that you know what to do in all the common spots. And look, if you're a little bit off, say you raise the 6-4 suited and the 7-5 suited, and you raise them both, and you're a little bit too wide, that's probably fine. You know what I mean? Instead of guessing, you need to study. Hate to break it to you. To get good at anything, you have to study. In my episode of A Little Poker this morning, we were talking about how a lot of people think that the way you get good at poker is by playing a lot of poker. But do you think you get good at, let's say, brain surgery by operating on a lot of brains? You think that's a good way to go about getting good? Or should you study and learn from other people who came before you who are already doing well and learn from computers that can tell you how to accurately do it? Well, obviously, you should study. Don't just get in there and start operating and think you know what you're doing. At the poker table, you won't really kill anyone by doing this, but you will kill your bankroll by doing this. It's 50% too wide on the button. I'm literally showing you right here. 40% is the game theory optimal range. You like to mix in 7-2 and 7-3 to keep them off balance. It's also going to keep your bankroll in the dumpster. Okay? Next. Play tightly against 3-bets. Especially from out of position. You have to be careful when tight, small stakes players 3-bet you. Why? Because their range is going to be very strong. You have to look to play hands that have good implied odds or hands that are just good to begin with. You need to fold hands that interact with your opponent's strongest holdings. For example, say you have king jack offsuit. You raise and someone 3-bets you and they're tight. Fold. Why? Because their 3-betting range is aces, kings, queens, jacks, ace king, ace queen, ace jack. How does king jack do against that range? Well, you're horribly dominated, right? So if you're going to be horribly dominated, you simply must get out of the way. You do not make money with weak hands from out of position against tight ranges. You make money in the opposite positions with strong hands in position against weak, loose ranges. That is how you win at poker. Okay? Playing marginal stuff out of position is a recipe for disaster. Here is the game theory optimal strategy when you get 3-bets. First, let's take a look at a tight scenario where you raise the low jack and the hijack 3-bets you. Should you 4-bet jacks from out of position? Certainly not every time and not against tight ranges. So this is the game theory optimal strategy. We'll talk about adjusting it in just a second. Notice from out of position, 100 big blinds deep, you should really only be 4-betting aces, kings, some ace king, ace jack suited, king jack suited, ace 10 suited, ace 5 suited. That's about it. Got a cough. I've been making videos literally all day. You may ask, why do you not want to 4-bet queens and jacks? Aren't those always good? Well, the answer is no. You can't see the charts. The charts are on the screen. If you can't see the charts, that's not good for you. My son Thomas is kicking on the door outside. Thomas, I need you to go, buddy. Someone is sleepy. I'm not sleepy. I'm coughing. I've been talking into this microphone for like the last 8 hours straight. What sizes do these presume? 2.5 big blind pre-flop raise sizes, 3-bet sides to 8 big blinds. In position, 12 out of position. Okay. Notice which hands are folding to the 3-bet. These are the hands in blue. Ace X suited, not so good. Bad 10X suited, not so good. Even high cards like Queen Jack and Queen 10 suited, not good. Notice Ace Queen, King Queen, Ace Jack offsuit, not good. Even the small and medium pairs are folding. Against the game theory optimal strategy. Now, I realize you're not playing against game theory optimal players. I would call every pair. I would call King Queen suited and King Jack suited. And if I had suited connectors, I would be calling with those. Say I did have Jack 10, 10 9, 6 5, etc. I would be calling those for sure. I would not, however, be calling with stuff like King 10 suited, Queen 10 suited, Ace Queen offsuit, King Queen offsuit, Ace Jack offsuit against a tight 3-better. A 3-better who is 3-betting tighter than the game theory optimal strategy. And a lot of your opponents will be 3-betting far tighter than the GTO strategy. Let's take a look at wide ranges now. You raise the cutoff, the button 3-bets you. What do? Now notice all pairs are calling for the most part. All the suited Broadway hands are calling. But that's about it. And, suited connectors. Notice the offsuit hands are still not good. Notice also your 4-bet bluffing range still contains almost entirely Ace X suited, King X suited, and some high card offsuit hands. Ace Queen offsuit, namely. When you 4-bet the Ace Queen offsuit and they 5-bet you, you fold. Same thing for King 10 suited, Ace 9 suited, Ace 5 suited, etc. If you 4-bet the pairs and they 5-bet you all in, you have to call off with jacks and 10s. But notice here, even in this scenario where you're against about as loose of a range as you can be against, you still just call jacks and 10s a large chunk of the time. Okay? Tip number 3, play big pots in position as the aggressor. You make money in small stakes games by playing big pots in position as the aggressor because as the aggressor and in position, you're going to be able to pick up pots that don't necessarily belong to you when you don't have the best hand, but your opponent just doesn't have a hand that can withstand a lot of aggression. The times that you want to play the widest are when you are in position against the preflop raiser. You need to take the initiative and set yourself up for success. Let's take a look at some examples. Here we have King Queen suited, hijack raises. We're in the cutoff. A lot of people just call this every time and think, all right, I'm going to call, see a flop, and go from there. which, to be fair, isn't all that bad. It's not like that's a blunder or anything, but you're going to find the best hands, especially the best suited hands, love to 3-bet in position, even against a 5 big blind raise. Bump it up, make it 3 times their raise or 3.5 times their raise. And put yourself in your opponent's shoes. If you're in the hijack in this situation, and you raise with, I don't know, ace-10 offsuit, and you get 3-bet, it's a bad spot. You should be folding. So if we're making hands like ace-10 fold, that's great. Making some bad ace-x suited fold and suited connectors fold, all that's great. All these hands have good equity, and by 3-betting, you make them fold. That's fantastic. If you get called by any of those hands I just mentioned, because I know a lot of you say your opponents are calling stations, if you get called by those hands, well, they're going to miss very frequently on the flop, which is also really, really good for you, right? Because whenever they miss the flop, they're going to check, you're going to bet, and they're just going to get out of the way. And then you're going to win the pot, which is fantastic. Sometimes you even make a good hand. Let's say they do call this time. King, Jack, 4. They check. This is an amazing spot for us. We are going to bet the flop, and then either bet the turn and jam the river, or just bet the flop and jam the turn. I can already tell you, people asked, have you memorized these spots? I've already memorized this spot. If the turn puts up straight and flush draws, we're going to be shoving the turn. If the turn does not put up straight and flush draws, we're probably going to be betting using a small size. But we're definitely going to bet the flop. We bet the flop. Notice we're not going too big. We're going 25. I want them to call with stuff like a jack or an underpair or 4, right? We want to extract value. They call. Notice we have a little bit more than a pot size bet. On the 8 of hearts turn, notice there are now a bunch of straight draws and flush draws. This is a spot where when the opponent checks, we're going to be going all in. Why? Because the board is very dynamic. At this point, there are a bunch of hands in our opponent's range that could easily improve to the best hand on the river. So we don't want to let them see the river for free or cheap. This is a spot a lot of people mess up. They bet $30 on the turn, thinking, all right, I'm going to bet and get some money in the pot. But you have to realize if your opponent has a flush draw or a straight draw, you're not giving them bad odds. And on top of that, if they do have a king, or even a hand like ace-jack, queen-jack, whatever, yeah, they're going to call you, but they're not putting all their money in immediately. Where if you just rip it in, they're going to call with a lot of those hands because they realize there are a lot of draws available, right? We rip it in. They call. King 10, tough spot for them. However, notice, they should have just folded to the pre-flop 3-bet, but they didn't. The opponent blundered before the flop. I mean, we literally just showed you the chart over here, or at least a similar enough chart. Notice, King 10 offsuit always folds to a 3-bet. It's not even close. It's nowhere near close, right? And because the opponent blundered this scenario pre-flop, well, they got stacked. Once they saw this flop with this hand, they cannot fold. So the opponent didn't do anything wrong at this point. But they made a big mistake pre-flop, and that mistake pre-flop cost them a ton of money. Don't make those mistakes. Here's another scenario. Ace-10 suited, some hijack raises. It's a great hand to 3-bet. They call. Flop comes king, jack, 6. They check. We're going to bet again, frequently and small. This time they just fold. You may say, oh, nothing to see here. Or what happens whenever they have you beat? Well, we're going to proceed on the turn in the river. Today we're discussing just pre-flop. But this is a spot where you want to be 3-betting a lot and then betting the flop. What's the difference between a dynamic board and a wet board? So I think people use the term wet and dry kind of incorrectly. In my mind, there are primarily 2 types of boards. There are boards where the current nut hand is unlikely to change by the river. That means, let's say there's 3 spades on the board. That's a spot where flushes, the current nut hand, are unlikely to get much worse by the river because the flush is just really good. So on boards where there's already a current nut hand that is somewhat likely to be in the opponent's range, such as 3 spades on the board or queen jack 10 where there's a bunch of straights available, or jack jack 3 where jack is very good, on those boards you want to be betting tiny when you decide to bet. On boards that have straight draws and flush draws, but no current straight or flush, like this, like that turn we just had a second ago. I'll pull it up again. Let's see. It's off the screen. There you go. on this turn, this is a very dynamic turn because now notice there is a flush draw available. And on top of that, there's a bunch of straight draws available. This is a very dynamic board because King Queen is almost always good at this point, but is somewhat likely to get outdrawn by the river. In scenarios like this, you're going to be betting big with a polarized range. Okay? Let's see. You feel like very few players in your games call it off with the King 10 in the spot. Well, look, if they're going to fold King 10, you're telling me they literally never call you? If they literally never call you here, then yeah, you should be bluffing like crazy. If your opponents are going to fold one of the best hands they can possibly have, you should be bluffing like mad. Right? I mean, think about it. A lot of people 4-bet kings and jacks preflop, so they don't have a lot of those. We block king jack hard with our king queen. They don't have a lot of king 8s, right? I mean, maybe a few suited combinations. What? They have diamonds, and that's it. Because the heart and the club are on the board and the spade's in our hand. So they have one combination of king 8. Maybe they have king jack, but like, what else can they have? They can have almost literally no hands. So if they're going to fold king 10, then you're going to completely run them over. Right? Always consider what you're saying. Like, if people are not going to pay you off, what should you? You should bluff with everything. You should go nuts. So, those are the 3 tips for beginners. Do not leave yet, though. We have a nice holiday gift for some of you. But yeah, tip number 1, stop limping and play aggressively. Tip number 2, play tight versus 3-bets, perhaps tighter than even GTO recommends. And then play big pots in position as the aggressor. If you do these things, you're going to absolutely crush your opponents. Saying your opponents will not call with king 10 there, and they'll only call it off with 2 pair, but there are no 2 pair, therefore they fold 100% of the time, or 90% of the time. If you ever find a spot in poker where your opponent's going to fold to a pot-sized bet 90% of the time, bet pot with everything. Literally free. You'd love my thought on GTO preflop bet sizes. I mean, typically you're going to find that GTO preflop bet sizes are small-ish. As you raise bigger and bigger and bigger, you have to play tighter and tighter because you're risking more to win proportionally less. Right? So, do you want to play a wide range or a tight range? Well, the answer is you want to play as many hands as you possibly can in a profitable manner. And that typically leads to relatively small-ish bet sizes in general. You tell your opponents to stop limping and they don't listen. Well, when you're playing at the poker table, don't give a whole lot of advice. As much as advice as I give on YouTube, I give no advice at the live poker table. And much of the advice I give is comical. For fun. We have a holiday sale happening right now at PokerCoaching.com. Head over to PokerCoaching.com/holiday to check it out. And for all of you here today, we have a fast action bonus. We are giving away 40 1-hour private coaching sessions. To qualify for one of these 40 one-on-one private coaching sessions with one of our coaches at PokerCoaching.com, you just have to be one of the first 40 people to sign up for a 2-year membership, a poker coaching premium during our holiday sale. After you sign up, we'll notify you within 24 hours if you're one of those 40 people. If you qualify, you'll be able to choose your coach. First come, first serve. Here's the coaching we're giving away. 5 hours with me, 3 hours with Matt Affleck, 2 hours with Justin Saliba. That's probably the one to get. Justin may be one of the absolute best poker players in the world today. 15 hours with Shondell Crazy Sixes. He gets in there. He battles. He's one of my favorite streamers. And God's Big Toe. God's Big Toe helps manage our Discord. He's an amazing player, great guy, and he's a good person to learn from too. Also, we just added a brand new multi-part series for Poker Coaching Premium members called The Hero's Journey. I've been coaching Slick Rick. You see him here. We've been working together for about 2.5 months. He's currently in Vegas playing all the win tournaments, getting demolished. Sometimes that's how it goes. I tried to tell him he can't run hot all the time. The first 2 months we worked together, he won over $100,000, which is as much as we thought he was going to win in the whole first year. And, I told him to stay sane, be smart, sell off a bunch of action for these big tournaments. Sure, go play them, but sell off a bunch of action. So even though he's losing in Vegas, it's not the end of the world because he listens. The nice thing about some students is they actually listen and they do what the coach says. And he's crushing it. He wanted to win a World Series circuit ring. He did it. He wants to play live cash game streams. He's doing it. And we are recording every single coaching session we have together over the next year. And we're putting it on PokerCoaching for you to watch, to learn from. This is how I would coach anyone who wants to seriously devote themselves to poker, somewhat from scratch. What stakes did he start at? So he already had a bankroll from working a job for a while. So he was starting out, he was playing 2-5 no limit, and I think $300 buy-in tournaments. He was not total novice, total beginner. He'd already studied poker a lot. He was already working hard. And, well, that's it, And he started slowly, grinded hard for about a month, won a decent amount from 2-5 no limit hold'em, and won a bunch from tournaments right off the bat. So I said, hey, you're clearly crushing it. You have a bankroll. Move up. He moved up immediately, kept crushing. Good. Life's easy when you have a nice edge and you play in these games. All right. That's one of our bonuses. Also, my team and I have been working very hard, and we just released our brand new course, the Advanced Cash Game course. You cannot buy this course, though. Not for sale. Sorry. It's only available if you join Poker Coaching Premium right now during the holiday sale. You will get free, complete access to this course for as long as you are a Poker Coaching member. Let's go through some of the content. High stakes live cash game secrets from Chris Brewer. Chris Brewer, right now, as I am talking, is playing a $1 million buy-in tournament in Las Vegas. He gets in there, he battles. He's played the Triton Poker stream just recently. He was in there for $300,000, give or take. He gets in there, he battles. One of the absolute best GTO players in the world, but not just straight GTO player. Maximally exploitative too, when it makes logical sense. He has content on GTO versus exploits and how to make the most money from cash games, how he approaches GTO poker, which, it's really nice whenever you have literally one of the best players in the world teaching you how to play GTO strategy. And he goes through with Rampage Poker, one of your favorite video bloggers. Some of you love him, some of you hate him. They go through some of Rampage's biggest hands together, as well as some of Chris's biggest hands. We also have content from Justin Saliba. Did you all know? Kind of like I'm coaching Slick Rick now. I coached Justin Saliba about 6 or 8 years ago. And now Justin Saliba is one of the best poker players in the world today. He's on day 2 in some tournament to win right now. He discusses defending versus aggression in deep stacked cash games. A lot of people make errors. I just reviewed a hand featuring Nick Airball. Nick Airball raised the queen 6. A bunch of people called. It comes queen 7, 5 with a flush draw. He bet. Somebody called. Somebody raised. Playing 300 big blinds deep or however deep they were, queen 6 must fold. When you are very deep stacked, you simply must be drawing to the nuts or the effective nuts. If you're not, you're making a mistake. In that spot, on queen 7-5 with a flush draw, Nick could be already drawing thin or dead against 2 pair and sets, and the draws all have lots of equity. You just got to ditch it immediately. As you see right here, why making or being able to make the nuts is so important. It's very important. He also discusses out-of-position GTO concepts and the various popular poker variants that are now being played, like the Deuce to 7 game or the stand-up game. He discusses those with the next-gen poker crew. If you've not checked out their content, it is amazing. And a bunch of other stuff from Justin. We also have a large section from Brad Wilson. He grinds 6-max cash games hard. He discusses all sorts of things pertaining to crushing the online game, such as tagging players quickly and exploits against the common players who you will encounter in the games, as well as how to play against good, strong regulars in the games that you play. I have a lot of content in the Advanced Cash Game course. Who'd have thought? It is my training site after all. I go through how to play all sorts of scenarios before the flop. When you should raise, when you should 3-bet, when you should 4-bet, when you get 4-bet, when you get 5-bet, when you get 6-bet, etc., etc., etc. But also multi-way, such as how to play against one caller, how to play against multiple callers, how to play when someone cold 3-bets or cold 4-bets, whatever. It's we discuss all sorts of things like this that are very, very important. We also have a ton of charts for multi-way before the flop cash game scenarios you will find yourself in. We also go through how to play all the common spots in 6-handed cash games as well. We also have advanced bet sizing concepts before the flop, and I discuss when you should really make a point to go from using, let's say, 1 or 2 bet sizes to multiple bet sizes, especially against players who may not be so good, to where you can really, really, really get out of line and exploit them. For example, when should you bet very, very large on the flop? When should you be over-potting it on the flop? When should you be betting very tiny on the flop, right? You always want to make a point to take advantage of the mistakes that your opponents are making. We continue discussing bet sizes on the turn and the river. We also discuss things like turn probes and delayed continuation betting. And it's a very, very good section on generally how to play post-flop deep stacked, which I realize is difficult for a lot of people. We also have a big section on multi-way play. I know a lot of you wanted a lot of content on multi-way cash game situations. And well, here you have it. I know multi-way comes up a lot in the small stakes games. And if you approach those like you approach heads up pots, you're going to be making mistakes. So you have to understand that as more and more people see the flop, you really, really, really want to be drawing to the nuts, as we just discussed with Justin. I know some of you play heads up cash games. So we got Jonathan Jaffe, one of the biggest winners in online heads up games, to battle it out against Justin Saliba. I threw him in there against Jonathan Jaffe to get crushed. He held his own pretty well, though. They played a ton against each other. And then they went through and they analyzed these hands, all the hands they played together. Justin also recorded his content live as he played it, and he gave real-time feedback. We also have Rampage Poker working with us. I threw Rampage Poker to the wolves. I let him get crushed by Doug Polk. Heads up at the lodge. But instead of getting crushed, he won. That's lucky. He gets in there with Justin Saliba, and they analyze a lot of the content that he played, or a lot of the hands that he played, heads up against Doug Polk, who is one of the best heads up players in the world. And they talk about how Rampage managed to win. You all believe Rampage just keeps getting in there, battling hard, and he wins more often than not? Unbelievable. So that's it. That's the holiday sale. Check it out at pokercoaching.com/holiday. You can get a discount on all sorts of membership links. I definitely recommend getting Poker Coaching Premium if you want to take your game to the next level. Don't forget, we just added the Hero's Journey that I'm going to continuously update with Slick Rick over the course of the next year. And you'll have full access to the Advanced Cash Game course. There's also the Advanced Tournament course. If you play tournaments, make sure you check that out too. Also, don't forget about the 40 private coaching sessions that we are giving away to people who sign up right now. Literally, the first time I've ever announced it, you're super live if you get in, of all these coaching sessions to give away to you. If you want to check out the discounts, go to pokercoaching.com/holiday. The link's right over there. Right over there. What do we think Slick Rick's hourly rate is? Well, he was winning about $130 an hour at cash games, give or take, and at tournaments, I don't know, something comparable. How much did I invest in coaching when I first started? A lot. I hired multiple coaches, and I was paying them between $100 an hour and $500 an hour, and it's always been well worth it. I'm a big fan of learning from others. I think a lot of people think that they can learn it all themselves and they can do it all themselves. And to be fair, poker is a game that I think attracts people who think they can do it all themselves, right? And while maybe you can, it's a whole lot easier and a whole lot cheaper to learn from other people. Please give advice about how you can play against players who is playing 600 big blinds deep in cash game and raising to gigantic sizes. Well, realize that they're risking a lot to win almost nothing. If someone's raising to 20 big blinds before the flop, they're risking, 20 big blinds to win 1.5. It's not a good risk-reward ratio. You can literally just sit there and play good cards. That said, if they're playing with wide ranges, you can 3-bet them a lot and just steal their pre-flop raises. You think it makes sense to build a donking strategy in live cash games? Solvers have a significant donking strategy on low boards. Solvers do not do a whole lot of leading on low boards with deep stacks. You do a lot of leading when you're shallow stacked. You do almost no leading when you are deep stacked. Because when you're out of position and deep stacked, you want to, you basically never have the range and nut advantage. So that results in you having to do a ton of checking at deep stack depths. When you're shallower though, on like say 6-5-4, which is the best board for the big blind, in that scenario, if you have just a 6 or a pair and a draw, you can just bet and get your money in for, let's say, 30 big blinds, but you can't for 300 big blinds. How do you find a game you can crush? You scout the table for bad players. I mean, look, if you're playing 1-2 no limit, every table is going to be soft, but ideally you want tables where everyone is having a party, having a good time. They don't know what they're doing. They're clearly goofing off. And fortunately for you, almost every single 1-2 no limit hold'em table live is going to be overly soft. Kids, please get out of the hall. Please get out of the hall. I'm trying to make a show right now. My kids are in the hall right now going nuts. They have the entire apartment to play it. They want to play right here. Not very kind. The ability to learn from others and diffuse frustration and pain to trust a group of people is immeasurable, indeed. As fast as you can speak and then slowly speaking, super annoying, why you turned me off. Bye. See ya. Am I going to play the $1 million tournament? No. I tried to practice reasonable bankroll management, and I didn't want to deal with selling $900,000 worth of action. That's it for today. If you want to learn a ton over the next year, next 2 years, check out pokercoaching.com/holiday. Brian, set the speed to 0.75. You know, Marius, look, a lot of people just want to complain, and they don't want to actually fix their problems. And that's okay. That's okay. Everyone's not for everyone. I realize. I do not speak all the languages. Some people do not like the way I talk. Some people don't like the way I sound. Some people don't like me for whatever reason, and that is a-okay because everyone is not for everyone. But I hope that you can forgive me for the way that I speak if you don't like it, and that you can recognize that the things I say and the content I produce is high value, useful, and beneficial for you. That's what we're going for. I wish all of you the best of luck right now and forever and in the holiday season. Enjoy yourselves. Make the most of your opportunities. If you have free time during the holidays, I'm telling you, studying is a great thing to do because a lot of people are just going to be partying and squandering their opportunities during the holiday season. And if you consistently outwork your opponents, you're going to crush them in the long run. And if you don't, well, you're probably going to lag behind. And I don't want you all to lag behind. I want all of you to thrive. Good luck in your games. Have fun. I wish you the best of luck. I hope you have a great holiday season. Thank you all for being here. Before you leave, click the like and subscribe button down below. Go to pokercoaching.com/holiday. Literally just bought the package. Awesome. Make sure you get your hour of coaching. Check out my new book, 100 Essential Tips to Master No Limit Hold'em. It is indeed cheaper than poker coaching and, very beneficial as well. I appreciate each and every one of you being here, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.